Hello YouTube, it's Hermit Writer, and today's video is going to be on how I like to shuffle tarot cards and how I recommend shuffling tarot cards. I apologize in advance if this is a little stitched together. There is a lot of background noise today, and I will do my best to edit it out. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy it. So for today's shuffling demonstrations, we will be using an older deck of mine, the Medieval Tarot, and we'll also probably have the Conver Bendov Tarot de Marseille, and probably the Madinier as well. So when I first started reading tarot, my preferred way to shuffle the cards was to bridge shuffle them or riffle shuffle them like a poker deck. And I preferred this way because it made it much easier to introduce reversals into the deck. And it looks and sounds really cool. And it's very efficient for mixing the cards up. I believe the math that I heard was that with a standard 52 card deck, it takes 7 riffle shuffles to make it essentially randomized. I'm sure that's exponentially higher with 78 cards, but I found that it always did a good job of mixing the cards up. However, it has its drawbacks. And one of these drawbacks, as you can probably see, is that its riffle shuffling is very hard on the cards. You can probably see these nicks and burrs here along the edges. And the top edges as well. And this isn't a deck that I use very much. I don't really like the artwork in it. When I was new to tarot, I didn't know much about decks and their history, and I naively thought that this was actual medieval artwork that had been incorporated into the tarot deck, kind of like Cat Black's Golden Tarot. That's a collage deck with medieval artwork. I thought this was similar, but it's not. These are modern recreations in a medieval style, which is totally fine, but it's not what I thought I was getting, so I've never really been in love with this deck. I have found that it is very good as a gaming deck because I'm not worried about damaging the cards. They're all it's very easy to tell what the suit and what the number is. They're all labeled very clearly. And since it's not one that I do, personal readings with or public readings with, I don't feel like playing card games with it as being disrespectful or anything. My thinking's changed a little bit in the meantime. I don't feel that using tarot for its original intended purpose as a game is disrespectful, but I have decks that I like to read with and decks that I like to play with, and this is one of the latter, so I don't mind demonstrating bridge shuffling with it. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, I apologize. The other drawback with bridge and riffle shuffling is when you get to a deck like this Tarot de Marseille Heritage edition of the Madinier, there's a version of the Noblet from a different maker. The cardstock is much thicker, and these do not riffle very well. You can kind of get them to riffle, but they're not nearly as flexible as that deck, which riffles much more smoothly. Some people can riffle with these, and that's awesome. I cannot, and I don't want to bend these cards or nick them anyway, so I don't bridge shuffle with those cards. I don't bridge shuffle with any of my cards anymore, except for that deck. I started out bridge shuffling with my CBD deck, and it already has, they're kind of hard to see, which is good. It's also why I stopped bridge shuffling with these. A few nicks on the edges of the cards, which I can't now find that card that was most nicked up, so I didn't want it to get any more nicks, so I looked for new ways to shuffle. And overhand shuffling is obviously an easy choice, and if you're careful with it, you won't be banging the cards into one another. It's much easier with a standard size deck like the CBD, but it works for the larger size decks. And that's the other thing to keep in mind. If you have a very large deck, like the Mary Packard version of the Modenier, there's no way that's going to fit in most people's hands to do an effective bridge shuffle. I used to also wash the cards, spreading them in a pile and just mixing them up like so. That also leads to nicking them on the edges. Sorry about that, that was rather loud, especially on the side edges. And it's kind of messy, and it's very easy to drop cards on the floor and lose them. And that's never a good look, especially when you're doing a live reading for a paying client. Effective, but it does get them mixed. Overhand shuffling, again, the math that I heard was it takes about 10,000 of these shuffles to randomize a deck. So it's not quite as effective by a long shot as bridge shuffling. But it is quick and it is easy to do. You can do it lengthwise like I do, or if your hands are big enough, you can do it side to side as well. But what I most like to do when I'm doing personal readings is a mixture of overhand shuffling and then I like to lay the cards out into 4 piles. Now this is definitely not time efficient, and if you're reading with a client in a live setting, you may not want to opt for this. What I do like about it is it allows me to touch every single card in the deck. So it sort of forms a have a bond with each of my cards, and especially when I'm using it for personal reflection and meditation. That's worth doing. I will then take each pile and give it a good overhand shuffle. Usually do 10 per pile. I'll then combine into 2 piles from 4. And then I'm left with the full deck. And I'll give it another overhand shuffle 10 times, just because I like the number 10, because there's 10 pips in the deck, I suppose. I don't know. And then when I'm reading for myself, I will cut the deck once, and then I will take that and split it into 3 piles. And then I will draw the top card from each of my piles. And then I have my 3 cards for my reading. And that's how I like to shuffle my cards when I'm reading for myself. When I'm reading for others, I will usually just do the overhand shuffle. And then if they would like to cut the deck, I will let them cut it. If not, I'll do it for them. And I'll pick, if I've cut it into piles, I'll ask them to choose the pile. And for most readings that I do, 10 cards is about the most that I'll do for a reading. Celtic Cross, for instance. Whatever pile they choose, I'll deal off the top of that and draw the cards from that. So yeah, not a very, major video or anything like that. I just thought it'd be fun to share with you how I like to shuffle and deal my tarot cards. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will probably be having another opening and unboxing video coming up next, and then maybe I'll get into card interpretations and things like that using the different decks, the Marseille decks and the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith decks and such. So I look forward to seeing you all again. Have a great day.